Hello and welcome to Cooking Through the Collection. My name is Melissa and I'm a librarian and home cook. I do a lot of research when wanting to expand my repertoire of cooking, and so I've challenged myself to walk through the stacks of my library's cookbook collection and grab things I've never tried before. This is a special Thanksgiving episode. So it's back to being Thanksgiving again. I am so thankful to not be on crutches this year. I'm also thankful to not be cooking for 15 people. I am cooking for 5. It's going to be a much more chill situation. But I've been really busy lately, and I just wanted to share my favorite cranberry conserve recipe. It's an Ina Garten recipe from Barefoot Contessa parties, but I actually found it on the Food Network website years ago. Some of my family will not eat cranberries any other way, so I thought it would be a good thing to share with all of you. So let's get in the kitchen and get started. So today I am going to make the cranberry conserve that I use at Thanksgiving. It's actually an Ina Garten recipe. My family absolutely loves it. I actually have a Thanksgiving recipe notes document that we've been using probably for the past few years, where it lists all the recipes that we use for Thanksgiving. I actually made a note to make a half batch for a smaller group of people. And this year we are a small group of people, so typically it would be 1 12-ounce bag of fresh cranberries. Clean. I'm actually going to use 6. And so I went to the Chatsworth Cranberry Festival for the first time in like 20 years. And it's very different than what it was, but there are still a few local farmers that were selling cranberry products and fresh cranberries. So those are my marbles of cranberries that we froze from October, but they are local to New Jersey. 4, 5. We have 6 of those. I'm going to put the rest in the freezer because I'll be making this again for Christmas. I also have a morning glory muffin recipe. It's a Food Network recipe. I don't remember if it's Ina Garten. Those cranberries we'll definitely use. It was a gigantic bag, but it was probably a quarter of the price it would have been at the store. So our next ingredient will be 1 3/4 cup sugar. I'm going to do the rest of my prepping first, actually. So it says use 1 Granny Smith apple, peeled, cored, and chopped. My husband and I went apple picking recently, and we actually got 30-something pounds of apples. This, I believe, is a Macoun. And I like that they're tart, but they're not as tart as a Granny Smith. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my hand peeler and go around it like those fancy peelers do, but I'm doing it by hand. The skin on these is a little bit thicker, so I feel like it's even more important to peel it. We have a lot of apples in our Thanksgiving recipes. They used to always be Granny Smith. We've kind of opened our mind to other apples now that we have easier access to them. Here where I live, there are a few different apple picking options, and I've been very lucky to have that. Okay, we've peeled that. So this recipe would typically have a whole apple, so I get to eat half of this as a snack. I am not complaining. Now the apple's sitting flat, and I kind of cut quadrants around the core. So now I have 4 flat pieces. I will keep 2 for myself. The other 2 are cored and chopped. So make sure there's a flat side down. This apple's pretty large, so I'm going to cut that part in half and then this part into quarters. I'm going to rotate it to make it cubes. These don't have to be too small, but you don't want them gigantic. So I'll take that other piece, kind of cut it in matchsticks, rotate it, and cut it in cubes. Oop. Let's not have an accident here. I'm just happy to not be on crutches this year. It's a huge relief. So let me get a little plate for myself, and I'm going to have the apple after I cook. My mom used to always do this. She'd put the extra slices on the side for me on a plate, and I'd either eat as I was watching her or helping her cook. That's a memory I do miss. My mom is unable to cook now. So what I'm going to do next is a little messy. I need to have 3/4 cup of chopped figs and 3/4 cup of chopped pecans. We're going to be cutting that in half. The recipe originally called for raisins, and my mother does not like raisins. So there really are 2 different types of figs. There's these Palmyra figs. There's the more black figs. I think they're called Black Mission. Both will work. I like what they sometimes call golden Palmyra figs. They seem a little less wet. They are very sticky. You have to cut them unlike raisins, but my mom just does not like raisins. So we have pushed over to figs, which she does love. I grew up having figs at Christmas and figgy pudding. Yes, my family is very traditional with some of its things because I grew up in a Victorian house. So let me pull the stems off. Usually what I have to do with figs is cut them in thirds and come to thirds or halves and then finally chop them up. They do stick to the knife. So sometimes this takes a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it. I think it makes it a little bit more unique. And this really is the only way my mother-in-law and my husband eat cranberries because there's so many other things going on. Cranberries are still the star. So we're going to cut those slices in half. And we line them up again. At this point, my hands are super sticky from the figs. I'm only putting it in a measuring cup, and I look like I'm almost there. I think one more. Actually, I'll finish a bag. So our next ingredient are pecans. You can use, I guess you could use other nuts, but we really enjoy pecans. So I buy pecan halves, and right now the best place to purchase pecan halves is Trader Joe's. The prices on dried nuts and fruits is really unparalleled right now, with the prices of food possibly going up even higher. You know, we look where we can save little bits and pieces. My husband puts pecans in his steel cut overnight oats. He also, in the fall, puts apples. Another reason why we buy so many apples. You keep the apples in cold storage, they're fine. We keep them in our basement refrigerator. They're not in a high humidity place, but they're in a cool place, so they will last. So I've done about half of what I need. I don't finely chop these. It just says chopped. Come out. My dad has a story about pecans. I believe one of his college roommates' families had a pecan farm, and I believe, I'll have to confirm the story with him, I believe that he got free pecans when his roommate's family visited because they would bring him them. I think it's my dad has a particular affinity towards them, and my husband also enjoys them. He loves pecan pie and all of those things as well. So we have the rest of our nuts, and we put them in my measuring cup. That's pretty dang close. So we're going to consider that done. This is not baking, so you don't have to worry about exact measurements. So now I am going to wash my hands. Then I'm about to get to another messy project, but not sticky hands is definitely helpful. So our next step is citrus, which actually helps complement the cranberries. It's actually not too tart. I need to find my zester, and I need the juicer. Okay, so remember, we're doing halves of everything, so it says I need 1 orange zest, grated and juiced, and 1 lemon zest, grated and juiced. And since you're making half batch, it's half of each. Let's get small bowl. I would not cut it and then zest it. So I'm going to zest about half. I'll put them in plastic wrap, and I'll add them to something else that's being done. So I use a microplane, which is based on a rasp in woodworking, and it is sharp, so you got to be careful. But the cool thing about it, it's very finely grated zest. You don't hurt your knuckles or your fingers like the box grater. This is a lot easier to manage. It actually kind of collects on the back, so you want to flip over. This is also good for grating ginger and grating garlic. So I'm going to cut the lemon in half. We're going to take my juicer. It's one of the reamer middle ones that's hinged. We're going to squeeze into the same bowl I zested in. I squeeze down as much as I can, considering my hand is not working. I'll put that to a side. And then for the orange, what I do is, because the reamer's small, actually cut it into quarters to make it fit in. So then I can just do one at a time. These are much juicier, obviously. So I slowly squeeze them, and I kind of tip to the side to not get any seeds in. So I will do this a few more times. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the decks, and we will get started with cooking. So I'll be right back. So I am back. Now we're going on to the next part of the recipe. So we're going to be adding the cranberries, sugar, and we're going to be doing half the amount of sugar. So I need half a cup plus half 3/4. I actually have a little measuring cup that I've been leaving in the container, which has been very helpful. So a half a cup of water. And then what we do is we bring that to boil for 5 minutes. Actually, you do not need it on high. It says like over low heat until the skin pops open, but you do need a little bit more, at least on my stove. So I'm going to do a medium, and I'll be back in a few minutes after the skins start to pop. So I am back. I'm waiting for these skins to pop. I've actually moved it up for me to high, and I'm just waiting for it to finish. But while I've been cooking and everything recently, I've actually been listening to Ina Garten's audiobook, Be Ready When the Luck Happens. It's actually read by her, and I've really been enjoying it right now. I'm probably about 2/3 of the way through. She's talking about her trip to Paris when she was vacationing with Jeffrey, and I've really been enjoying it so far. She's much more rogue than I thought she might have been, kind of wanting to be a rebellious spirit. But I guess that makes sense in other ways that she was willing to take a chance on a business when she had been working for the government. But anyway, I've been enjoying it. I enjoy Ina Garten's recipes. They almost always work. You can clearly tell that they're tested and meticulous. You tell she must have some sort of science or technical background to be able to do all that, and I really appreciate those steps because sometimes, especially when there was Food Network in the early days, the recipes did not work. But we're getting close to the skins popping. The cool thing is because these were frozen, I think that's also why they're taking a little bit longer. Typically, I use them from fresh. But these cranberries were pretty much right from the bog from the farmers, already picked over, really beautiful. Came in a completely full gallon Ziploc bag. So they are taking a little bit longer, but that's okay. I'm not rushing. I try to do this a few days in advance of Thanksgiving because it can really sit. It's so much sugar in it. It's not going to go bad. It's got fruit in it, dried fruit. So you don't have to worry about it expiring anything. So it's a few days in advance part of the prep. I try to also do the pie crust in advance because they do better when they've been sitting for a while. So the skins are popping. Don't think you can really hear them. You're more hearing everything boiling. But it's fun to watch them just go poof, and they kind of split their skin in half. But that's usually a sign that they made it for. I splash a little bit of that sugar. We're going to add the apple, zest, and juices and cook for 15 minutes. So start putting the apples in and getting in all the zest and juice. It really does make a difference when it's fresh juice and zest. So I'm going to leave this for 15 minutes. I'm going to eat my apple snack, and then I will be back. So I am back, and we are getting ready to power everything down. The next step will be remove from the heat and add not raisins, in this case figs and nuts. Let cool and serve chilled. There we go. We're going to turn off the burner, pull it off the burner, and then I have our pecans and figs. I'm going to have a spatula to stir it in because we want these to kind of hydrate. There's a lot of sugar in this, so be careful. You will burn yourself if you spill some. I don't recommend it. I did it. So we're going to let that cool, and then we serve it chilled. Hopefully, I can get my husband's reaction because he's the anti-cranberry person, so I think he's the one who makes the most sense to ask how it came out. So here we are. The conserve is complete, and Chris is here.
Hi.
So you've had this before, right?
I've had this a lot of times before. And I have to say, I don't really like cranberry sauce. So like the stuff that comes out of the jar growing up, it was probably at our yearly traditional Thanksgiving in my grandparents' house that I went to growing up, but I don't think I ever took it.
You mean the crushed stuff or the jelly jiggle stuff?
To be honest, I never even looked at it, so I don't even know which one they had. I think one of my aunts brought it because it was more traditional in their family, but I never really grew up eating cranberry, but you figured out a way to get me to enjoy cranberry because you're a great cook.
Well, actually, Ina Garten is, but I'll take the compliment because I did modify the recipe. So let's see what you think.
All right. You did it again, Melissa.
Yep. I think I put too many nuts in this time, but does it work okay?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love pecans, so I'm the wrong person to ask about pecan. I also got a lot of fig on this bite, too. So I think there's a good amount of other stuff, and that's probably why I like it so much, because
It's minimum cranberry.
yeah, so my cranberry, because there's so much other things in it, it becomes almost like a secondary ingredient in some ways. It's a supporting player with all the other stuff mixed in.
Well, I'm glad you like it. Our cat, Samine's trying to eat it, but she cannot have it. But I'm glad you still enjoy it.
You're the best.
I hope that you enjoy this recipe. If you do try to make it, I hope that you have a safe and happy holiday. or just a good meal with family and friends wherever you may be. Thank you for joining me on Cooking Through the Collection. If you enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving a positive review. You can visit the website for more information at cookthecollectionpod.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at cookthecollectionpod. Until next time, happy cooking.